Hi everyone, my name is Alexis Penny and I'm here to talk about upcoming workshops that I'm offering. Grounding and earth connection through movement, meditation, and ceremonial practice. So what is energy grounding? Energy grounding is a practice where we seek to intentionally create the connection between our personal energy systems and the larger energetic field where there's this sort of infinite abundance of resources that's being constantly offered to us if only we can choose to make that connection. So it's sort of like breathing in a way, in that, like, breathing tends to kind of happen on its own. There are moments when we find that we're breathing really well, we're with someone that we really love, we're at a really cool concert, or maybe we're outside in nature. Everyone has their own kind of space that feels really good, right? They really feel like they catch their breath there, maybe without even thinking about it. And then some of us have taken breathing into a more practical framework, like through yoga or meditation, and find that, wow, when I actually really pay attention to my breathing, it feels even better. Or like in a moment of stress, I can actually catch myself and really work with my breathing. So if you think of the atmosphere as this big field, while not being fully infinite, and it's something that can be polluted, but it is still something that's pretty big, and it really does offer us air and air pressure at all times, or else we would die. So the idea is similar in terms of our energy systems, and how I'm using energy is to define what in an intuitive or an imaginal, in your felt sense, is the thing that shows us what all of our relationships are. So energy for me shows me not just my internal relationships, but my external relationships, the relationships between things like my physical body and my mind, my emotions and my spirit, however you kind of experience that. So it's a felt thing. It's not like something that I'm going to sit and tell you, this is your energy, and oh, your aura looks da 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 da. It's more like something that you will learn to discover for yourself. I think most of us know what energy feels like. Again, we walk out into a beautiful field in nature, we walk out into a peaceful forest, or spend some time by a river or a lake. We tend to feel the difference in the energy versus when we're stuck in traffic on the highway, or we walk into a really tense meeting at work, or we're in a sense of conflict with someone that we're close to, versus when we're not in conflict with that same person, right? So we know what energy feels like, even when words are not being said. We know that sort of underneath the surface, there's these qualitative experiences that we can all have, and they're very unique to all of us too. So grounding allows us, no matter who we are, no matter what background we come from, no matter what belief system or lack of belief system we work with, to understand that there's this larger field, and actually just really treat that as a hypothesis, and then explore through practice how to connect to that larger field. Now, a big chunk of that larger field is the planet, right? It's just a big, huge, irrefutable body. And while granted at this time on planet Earth, there are many people with a lot of confusing ideas about what that planet may be, we can still choose, even holding some of those confusing ideas potentially, to plug in and just open to the experience. Now, it's something that everyone will experience differently. Like something like yoga or meditation, it's not meant to just be done once. It's not like flipping on a light switch. It's more like you building that system yourself patiently through practice. And you'll work with my support, ideally, in this workshop, and with the support of whoever else shows up, creating a container for all of us to explore how to do that together in a way that creates an experience not just for the workshop itself, but creates an experience that you can take home and hopefully replicate and put into practice. Whether you have a practice that you already do, like yoga or meditation or tai chi, qigong, etc., or maybe you're someone who's always maybe struggled or really like kind of moves back and forth between having a practice and not so much. If you do something every day, you can scaffold grounding underneath it. That's one of the coolest things I love about this practice, is that it doesn't have to be super precious. It doesn't require really all that much, but your willingness to just sit down and do it, or stand up and do it. So we'll do a lot of movement that supports our grounding and some other energetic aspects of our body, that our energy bodies, that we'll seek to highlight and cultivate through the grounding, through that energetic connection with the earth. And then we'll move into a little bit of a ceremonial piece.
Disconnected.
So the ceremonial piece has to do with actually taking something out of just that basic practice framework and bringing in a little bit of the sacred, a little bit of that ineffable spirit sense of things, to where we're leaning into that place where the earth is not just a big hunk of mineral. It's not just even a living ecosystem or this huge web of many, many interconnected ecosystems, but is actually a living, dreaming body that has its own spirit and energy that we can also work with through the grounding. And again, that's a hypothesis. It doesn't really require you to pledge belief to anything, other than to just kind of hold in your awareness that the idea of a living, dreaming earth tends to be the bedrock of almost every tradition, human-wise, that's been discovered on the planet thus far. And so no matter how far our particular people or culture or framework has gone from that, all I ask is that you open your awareness and your willingness to be curious, to show up, to feel how it feels, and to see how your experience is. Because your experience will be different than mine and from everyone else who shows up. And so it's really about having a diverse experience of grounding together, whatever that ends up looking like for you. So I really hope that you'll join me, and in the event that you can't, I'd like to just share a little bit of what grounding may tend to feel like. So just like a tiny teacup version. But before I do that, what's the point of all this? Why would I teach something like this? Especially when there's not really a whole lot of language or context that, is available to us in the pop culture about something like grounding. So the reason I teach it is because it has really benefited my life and impacted my life in a really positive sense. So before I learned about anything remotely resembling grounding, I found myself to be a very anxious person. Sometimes like the thought of texting a friend, even like someone that I've known like my entire life, could bring up such anxiety that I would find myself going into like even like really exorbitant addictive behaviors just to avoid texting that friend. There are all kinds of situations that would arouse such anxiety in me. And I learned to cope in a lot of ways, with food, with other behaviors that would both kind of take me even further out of my body, so to speak. And then sometimes the fallout of those behaviors would be that anchoring where I'd wake up in sort of a shame. And I would feel really heavy and almost grounded in that sense. And so there was sort of this cycle that moved in my life at a lot of my teens and 20s of sort of like excessively ungrounded and then forcing myself to be grounded with some kind of a hangover or something like that. And that's a pretty dramatic example of that because, I'm kind of a dramatic person, or at least I was at that time. But for other folks, it may just be this sense of low-grade simmering anxiety, a simmering sense of disconnection or unreality. There's a lot of questions floating around in the internet and pop culture right now, like, is any of this even real? It's like the ideas that were so beautiful in like the first Matrix movie, kind of running amok. Is this a simulation? That kind of thing. For some folks, it also might show up, our lack of grounding, true grounding, might show up as feeling really heavy. Feeling like I don't have support to do actually what I want to do, or even just to get through the day. I might feel like a bag of bones that weighs 1,000,000 pounds, but still like I can actually like barely muster the energy to kind of move, and really not feel that connection with the larger field. Almost like gravity is a burden instead of something that actually allows for me to land here and be buoyant. So there's all these different ways that the lack of grounding, the lack of earth connection can show up. And if you open to your imagination, I'm sure you can imagine the ways that a lack of connectivity to the earth and the larger resources are actually already playing out in terms of our politics and our culture and a lot of the conflicts and challenges that are up for us right now culturally, at least here in the United States. So, with that being said, what I have found through cultivating my connection with the earth through practice and cultivating my energy body through that, resourcing it from the earth so that I'm always both cleansed and supported by this larger field that is much older, bigger, and if we're talking in terms of sentience and dreaming, wiser than I, is that I have the resources to get up and start my day and feel excited about it. I have the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional resources to move through my life and meet the challenges of my life and still feel that fundamental stability and beingness of being me in connection with the earth intact. It also allows me to run things along that relationship as a metric to kind of see where does something actually unground me, and maybe I start to kind of avoid that and actually ultimately call in behaviors that reinforce and resonate with this energy of grounding that I practice and cultivate through my practice. So it really has shifted the whole trajectory of my life in a positive sense. I've gone from feeling very unmoored, really disconnected from my family through the process that was really set in place through just learning to ground, to being really connected to my family, for better or worse, and all the many beautiful challenges that a family contains, to being really connected in my relationships, to being actually able to sit in the discomfort of relationship, to being able to meet that anxiety where it is and still channel it into action and text that friend, you know what I mean, to reach out. So there's a lot that I could say about grounding and how much it has benefited my life. But let's stop talking and just ground for a couple minutes, 2-3 minutes max. So if you feel able to join us, you can close your eyes, but you don't have to. And maybe just rock back and forth, whether you're sitting or standing, and just get a sense of where your heels are, where your sits bones are, those bony bones under your butt. And just key into your breathing here for a few rounds of breath, and just notice if that breath could just already bring a little bit of a weight in a healthy sense into the body, a presence. As if your breath could be a magnet that brings you back into relationship with yourself, into relationship with this current moment versus the past or the future, into relationship with this current space versus anywhere else you could be. And as you breathe, imagine like a ball or a sphere of your consciousness forming in your head. And just notice the felt sense of that. What does it feel like, taste like? What sounds arise? What textures? And then allow your breath to draw that ball down into your chest, your heart center, that space kind of behind your sternum, between the hug of your two lungs. And as you breathe there, notice the difference as you bring that energy of your head down into relationship with the energy of your heart, mind meeting emotions. And then with your next breath, let gravity just pull you down even further, landing with a plop right there in your belly, that bowl of your pelvis, that sort of circular space between your two hips. And as you breathe there and send your lungs and your breath and your energetic awareness there, just notice the feeling of bringing your head, your heart, into relationship with your belly, your body. A landing space for both body's wisdom and your spirit, that ineffable thing that you are beyond the body. And then just open to the possibility of grounding. Allow gravity to tug that column of energy down even further. Let it push out naturally, almost as if it already knows how to do this, following the path of your spine down past the layers of what is human created, whether that's one floor or several below you, down through the sewers, down through any archaeological remnants, even pre-archaeological, down through any remnants of soil or earth that were ever touched by a human. And start to plug into that more energetic layer of things, moving through the energies that arise eventually as natural gas, as water, as mineral deposits, as soil. Moving through stone, trusting your capacity to do this, your inborn knowing of how to ground. Notice any resistance and let it be a part of the experience. And then just take a moment there to anchor in the bedrock, to let your root unfurl, and to receive that possibility at the end of this hypothesis that you can ground, and that grounding and true earth connection are actually your birthright. You might notice a quality of energy rising through that root system up into your body. See if you can include the background noise in your experience and allow that grounding to anchor your bones, to flow through your connective tissues, to resonate out into your muscles, your blood, your organ system, to flow through your nervous system and bring that sense of stability, of support, of abundance, of connection, of true foundation, of a source of growth. Take a moment, a few breaths to just really breathe with that, however that shows up for you. Whatever colors, images, shapes, textures, sights, sounds, feelings, smells, tastes. Open your whole imagination to this new possibility of grounding that you've created through your choice to do this. And if it feels right to you, let a little gratitude drift out from your heart. Give a little thanks, whether you speak that out loud, whether you share that as an energy, or whether you just hold that as a feeling. For me, I'll say thank you, Earth, great dreamer. Thank you for the possibility inherent in grounding. Thank you for dreaming me as a part of you. Thank you for giving me grounding as my birthright and allowing me the resources of this day and of this body. And if you feel like you want to stay with this, feel free to turn the recording off and stay with it. Otherwise, I really hope to see you at a grounding workshop soon. Check out my Instagram or my website for dates for those upcoming dates. And allow yourself to rise back up out of the earth, maintaining that grounding even as you come back into a more normative state of consciousness. Rising from your belly into your heart center. Breathing from heart center back up into the head. Flaring your awareness back out. Feel the air on your skin. The earth rising up, supporting your physical body. The room or environment around you. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Make the choice to be here now. Maybe get up, get your wiggles out, pat yourself down, and then flow into the rest of your day and notice how different it is now that you have grounded yourself. Hope to see you soon. Thank you for tuning in.